What if the Roman Empire's greatest weapon wasn't the gladius, but a clandestine network of state-sponsored assassins and scouts? In the dense forests of Dacia, these secret agents evolved from simple clerks into the masters of unconventional warfare. We're exposing the hidden tactics that proved information, not iron, was the true key to toppling kingdoms. Because long before Roman legions marched across the Danube, before siege engines rolled toward enemy walls, and before a single sword was drawn, Rome's invisible war had already begun. But the deeper question is this: how did an empire known for brute military force become one of the ancient world's most effective intelligence machines? And how did that hidden network quietly dismantle one of Rome's most dangerous enemies? To answer that, we need to step into the shadows of the Roman war machine. By the end of the 1st century AD, Rome seemed unstoppable. Its legions controlled lands from Britain to the deserts of the Middle East. Yet beyond the Danube River stood a kingdom that refused to kneel. Dacia, a land of dark forests, steep valleys, and mountain fortresses carved into the Carpathian Mountains. To Roman soldiers, Dacia was more than an enemy territory. It was a maze, and inside that maze ruled a king who had already embarrassed the Roman Empire once before. Decebalus, a brilliant strategist who understood something many tribal leaders did not. Rome could be beaten. In earlier conflicts, Dacian forces had inflicted devastating defeats on Roman armies. Entire legions had struggled to fight in terrain where narrow passes and hidden trails favored ambush over open battle. For Rome, invading Dacia was not simply a military challenge. It was a gamble. One wrong move in the mountains could destroy an entire army. So when Emperor Trajan prepared for war, he faced a difficult question. How do you conquer an enemy who knows the battlefield better than you ever could? The answer was simple. You learn everything about them first. Behind every Roman army marched men whose names rarely appeared in history books. They didn't carry shields into battle. They carried secrets. Among the most important were the speculators. Originally clerks and messengers, these men slowly evolved into something far more dangerous: scouts, observers, information gatherers. Their job was simple in theory but deadly in practice. They traveled ahead of Roman forces, slipping quietly through hostile territory while watching enemy movements, counting patrols, studying fortifications, tracking supply routes. But speculators weren't the only agents operating in the shadows. Rome also deployed exploratores, long-range reconnaissance units. These men ventured deeper into enemy lands than any ordinary scout. Sometimes they remained hidden for days, sometimes weeks, watching, listening, memorizing every detail they could carry back to Roman commanders. But here's the unsettling part. These scouts didn't just observe. They sometimes blended in, disguised as traders, travelers, or even locals, and that meant Rome's eyes could be anywhere. When Trajan began preparing for the Dacian campaigns around 101 AD, Roman intelligence agents crossed the Danube long before the army did. Their mission wasn't to fight, it was to learn. They studied river crossings where Roman forces might advance. They mapped hidden mountain trails that could secretly move troops. They observed Dacian patrol patterns, but soon they discovered something troubling. The Dacians had built a defensive system far more sophisticated than Rome expected. Instead of relying on one capital fortress, the kingdom was protected by a chain of mountain strongholds. Each fortress guarded a different route into the heart of Dacia, and they were connected. Signals could travel quickly between them using horns, fires, or messengers, which meant that if one fortress detected an invading army, the entire region would know. To Roman commanders, this was a terrifying realization. If the legions marched blindly into this network, they could be surrounded, trapped, destroyed in the mountains, unless Rome could find a way to break the system first. This is where Rome's intelligence network became truly powerful, because Roman spies weren't just gathering information. They were assembling a puzzle. Every prisoner captured in a skirmish could reveal something useful. A merchant might know how food supplies reached a fortress. A traveler might describe a hidden road between valleys. A captured warrior might accidentally expose weak points in defensive walls. Individually, these details seemed insignificant, but Roman officers did something unusual for the ancient world. They organized the information. Reports were compared. Routes were mapped. Patterns began to emerge. And slowly, something remarkable happened. The mysterious defensive web protecting Dacia started to make sense. But one question still still haunted Roman commanders. Where was the weakest point? To understand the difficulty facing Rome, imagine marching tens of thousands of soldiers through a landscape designed for ambush. The Carpathian Mountains are not gentle hills. They are steep, forest-covered ridges filled with narrow passes and hidden valleys, perfect for guerrilla warfare. A small group of Dacian warriors could strike from the treetops, disappear into the forest, and attack again from another direction. For Roman scouts operating alone, the danger was constant. Every shadow could hide an enemy. Every wrong step could mean death. Yet they kept returning with more information, more maps, more secrets, until finally, Trajan had something no Roman emperor before him had possessed: a clearer picture of the Dacian defensive network. And with that knowledge, he could finally move his army. When the Roman invasion began, Trajan did something unexpected. Instead of marching straight for the Dacian capital, he targeted the outer fortress network first. One by one, Roman forces attacked the strongholds guarding the mountain passes. Some fell through direct assault. Others collapsed under siege. Each victory weakened the protective chain surrounding Dacia. But the strategy had another hidden purpose. Every captured fortress provided Rome with even more intelligence: documents, prisoners, maps, secrets that had once belonged to the Dacians themselves. Slowly, the Roman army turned the enemy's own defense system against them. Eventually, Roman forces reached the greatest prize in Dacia, the capital city of Sarmizegetusa. High in the mountains, protected by massive walls, the fortress appeared nearly impossible to take. A direct assault would have been costly, possibly disastrous, so Roman intelligence officers searched for something else: a vulnerability, and then they found it: the city's water supply. Ancient sources suggest the Romans located the pipes that carried water into the fortress. Instead of storming the walls, they cut the flow. Inside Sarmizegetusa, panic spread. Water became scarce. Morale began to collapse. What looked like an invincible stronghold suddenly became a desperate prison. And the fate of the Dacian kingdom began to unravel. King Decebalus refused to surrender. As Roman forces captured the capital, he fled into the mountains with a small group of followers. But Rome's intelligence network had one final task: find the king. Roman scouts tracked his movements through forests and valleys. Every sighting was reported, every trail followed, until finally Roman cavalry caught up with him. Surrounded and unable to escape, Decebalus made a final decision. Rather than be captured and paraded through Rome as a trophy, he took his own life, and with that moment, the Dacian kingdom came to an end. History often remembers the Roman Empire as a machine of steel and discipline. Legions marching in perfect formation, shields locked together, swords flashing in battle. But the conquest of Dacia reveals another truth: Rome didn't win by strength alone. It won by seeing what others could not. Through spies, scouts, informants, and intelligence networks, the empire turned scattered fragments of knowledge into strategic power. They mapped an unknown land, exposed hidden weaknesses, and dismantled one of the most dangerous kingdoms beyond their borders. Long before the first Roman soldier stepped onto the battlefield, Rome had already begun to win, because sometimes the most powerful weapon in war is simply knowing where to strike.